Another day, another question and solution on the Certified Q&A for the Google Cloud Platform Associate Cloud Engineer. It's very important to the process of understanding Google Cloud and passing the certification exam that you go through the question and attempt answering it yourself first. So pause the video, work through the question. We'll catch up in just a little while and I'll show you how I do it. In this scenario, your application has a large international audience and runs stateless virtual machines within a managed instance group across multiple locations. One feature of the application lets users upload files and share them with other users. Files must be available for 30 days. After that, they're removed from the system entirely. Which storage solution should you choose? A cloud data store database. B, a multi-regional cloud storage bucket. C, persistent SSD on virtual machine instances. Or D, a managed instance group of Filestore servers. The key parts of this question to consider are that one, we have an international audience. So you expect an international audience to have consistent low latency across the world. You do not want some of them to have an experience very different with more latency than certain other users. You are running with stateless virtual machines, which basically means that the machines can be shut down and brought back up very often. We also need to work with files uploaded by the users, and these are, well, they are going to be ideally say PDFs or document files and not necessarily structured data. You also want the data to be available for 30 days. Right? It must be available for 30 days. After that, they're removed entirely. Cool. Now, considering all these different requirements, let us see whether the first option is reasonable. Will a cloud data store database be appropriate for this particular situation? The key part here to compare against would be that users upload files. These files, like we discussed, are understood to be documents or PDFs or images, and these are said to be what are called unstructured data. They do not follow a particular pattern. Right? They are not columns of data. They do not have a document database kind of setting. So if we look at the flow chart to decide the right storage to choose, Cloud Datastore falls in the middle set, which works with semi-structured and NoSQL data. Right? Given that is the case, will Cloud Datastore be a good option for this requirement? The answer is no, right? Because what we require is to be able to upload files such as images and videos and documents and PDFs, which is not structured or semi-structured data. Therefore, given that Datastore is a NoSQL database for semi-structured data and that our data is files, we can clearly eliminate this option. How about persistent SSD on virtual machine instances? The key requirement to consider this against is two things: an international audience and stateless virtual machines. Why would this be suitable or unsuitable for these particular use cases? Firstly, VMs are network attached to persistent storage, which basically means that they are not physically attached, but there is the VMs on one side and there is the persistent storage on one side, right? And these are connected over a very fast petabit network within Google Cloud. Since these are separately attached, and we now have a requirement that the VMs are stateless, which means that they're going to go in and out of existence, and that the machines are going to be shut down and restarted regularly, what exactly happens with the persistent disks? Even though they're network attached, we still need to be able to connect them to the new VMs that come up. So whenever this happens, it becomes your responsibility to ensure that the new VMs that come up automatically is connected to the correct storage, correct persistent disk. Secondly, persistent disks are a zonal resource, right? So this wouldn't be a good choice for an international audience. Why? Let us say you are serving your data from the West Coast in the US, and your customers are in the Europe region. If it is a regional or zonal resource, the data request will have to then um, travel over it travels over Google's very fast network, but you are still restricted by the physical speed of light. You can't go faster than that. So there still is a certain amount of time taken for that request to travel all the way from Europe to the West Coast and then come back. This wouldn't be ideal when you're working with an international audience. You want to have data as close as possible, and therefore, given that persistent disks are going to be a zonal resource, even this would not be a suitable match with the requirements that we have. So, given these summary of non-matching issues, we have that percentages are zonal, and therefore there will be increased latency for an international audience. Since VMs are stateless and they are going to be terminated and restarted regularly, we will again expect that availability is going to be affected. Moreover, since it is also going to travel the network or travel an international network, you also should expect greater latency. In addition to that, the burden of reattaching the disks every time the machine comes in and out of existence is on you. And that is clearly something that we do not want to deal with. If there is a built-in solution, that is what we should choose. Given these, we can eliminate option C. Now we are left with two options: B, using cloud storage, specifically a multi-regional cloud storage bucket, and D, to use a Filestore server. Now, when I was studying for the exams, Filestore was still fairly new, and I hadn't done a whole lot of work or projects around Filestore. So we are going to assume that we do not know much about Filestore and use this as a case study in figuring out the right answer, even if we do not know all the options in place. One of the things you absolutely must know, though, is this particular flowchart with respect to figuring out the storage solution to be used. There is no way that you cannot know some of these basic flowcharts. It just will not serve you well to ignore this part. So, in just looking at this flowchart, we know already that our data is going to be unstructured files, right? So, looking at the far right section, we've got three options there, right? So, under files, unstructured files, which is already chosen as the group that we want. Now, under that, we have two more, which is cloud storage and cloud file store. So both of these work with unstructured files, and therefore we cannot eliminate either of them at this point. But we do know at this point that both of these solutions will work with files that are uploaded by the users. So we are getting close, but we will now need to look at the other requirements to figure out which one to eliminate. Given that I do not know Filestore very well at this point, what we are going to do is verify that cloud storage actually suits the requirements of this question. Cool. So, what are the few things we need to consider? One, the additional things apart from the fact that it needs to be files that need to be uploaded, we will have to work with an international audience, stateless virtual machines, and additionally, it must be available for 30 days, after which they are removed from the system entirely. So, first question I'm thinking is, what should I do to work with this requirement of a 30-day availability, after which they're removed from the system? Should I do something manual? Should I run a cron job that runs regularly every day? Or is there something that is provided by Google Cloud itself? It turns out that Google Cloud Storage supports lifecycle management. It is possible for you to define within cloud storage what should happen to a file after a certain period in time. For example, it is possible to say, after exactly 30 days, move this file into another storage state. In our case, in step 2, we have chosen to delete the file. We can also move it to certain other options. For example, like to move it into a nearline, coal line, which has lower cost of storage and which are great archival options. So cloud storage supports lifecycle management in build, and therefore this is starting to look like a good option now. What about the other requirements now? What about the option of an international audience? Well, Google Cloud supports multi-region replication as an option. So there are three ways in which you can spread your data across regions. Either you can have your data in a specific region and the data will be replicated across availability zones in that region. You can also have a dual region, in which case your data is replicated across a specific pair of predefined regions in a particular region. I'm sorry, in a particular, I would say, continent. The third option is a multi-regional option, which allows your data to be distributed redundantly across multiple continents. Sorry, across multiple regions, typically within a continent. So today the options are, for example, in regional storage, you can have a long list of regions, and almost every, I would say not almost, every region supports cloud storage, right? So you can decide that your data goes in any region. If you choose the multi-region options, today you have as of this recording, you have three options. Either you choose the Americas, Europe, or Asia Pacific. So this was a requirement that was part of the question, where it said they needed a multi-regional storage. That is proving to be great already now. If you chose a dual region, on the other hand, today you have got two options between a couple of regions called NAM4 in the Americas or UUR4 in Europe. If at all we wanted an international audience that was spread across the world and not just in a multi-regional situation, you can actually combine cloud storage with load balancer to give a much wider audience access to data. In this particular case, there is a user in New York and another user in Oslo, and they are both being routed via a single load balancer, which is globally available, to a region that is closest to them. So the New York user will be sent to a region in the US, whereas the Oslo user will be sent to a region in North Europe. It is also possible to combine cloud storage with load balancer and a content delivery network, Google Cloud CDN, to give globally available cached content at multiple edge locations all around the world. The way you do this would be to configure CDN, attach a load balancer to it as in step 2, create a backend configuration like in step 3, and then choose the bucket that you need to be chosen in, that you need to serve in steps 4 and 5, and you can also choose as a part of step 4 to enable Cloud CDN for this. So it is a very straightforward solution to be able to make your data in a Google Cloud Storage bucket available across the world if you so choose to. I think that's amazing that highly available storage is available to you with a few choices that you need to make over a wizard screen. So, having studied and understood a lot more about Google Cloud Storage, we can tick off a few of the requirements from this question. We have that Google Cloud Storage is a blob storage and it stores files. and our users want to upload files. Google Cloud Storage allows for the configuration of lifecycle management of objects, which means we will be able to ensure that the file is definitely available for 30 days, and after which they can be automatically removed without any manual intervention or having to write scripts or a cron job from your side. Google Cloud Storage is also an independent solution that integrates well with a lot of other solutions within Google Cloud, including Compute Engine or Kubernetes Engine, and therefore allows to work with stateless VMs. We have inbuilt multi-region capability that serves an international audience. You can also combine it with a load balancer and Cloud CDN for cache data delivery from multiple edge locations all around the world. Given all of that, we can now be fairly sure, even if we did not know Filestore very well, that B would be the appropriate option to choose a multi-regional cloud storage bucket. Great. As part of our learning though, let us go ahead and learn a little more and ensure that option D, to use Filestore, is still not a good option. So what is Google Cloud Filestore? I'm going to read from the docs in this. It says that you use Cloud Filestore to create a fully managed NFS file server on Google Cloud for use with applications running Compute Engine virtual machine or Google Kubernetes Engine clusters. What is NFS? It allows a user on a client computer to access files over a computer network, much like local storage is accessed. So it is like having a disk like it's attached on a machine, but is actually somewhere else on another machine. So the kind of files that you essentially have a file system, and you're able to put files like images and PDFs and videos into it. Which is the reason why we could not eliminate Filestore as an option just based on the data, on the type of data that it is storing. The docs also says that Cloud Filestore instances live in zones within regions. Additionally, to decrease network latency, we recommend creating a Cloud Filestore instance in a region and zone that is close to where you plan to use it. So this clearly indicates to us that given that Filestore is a zonal/regional resource, it is not going to work with the requirement of serving an international audience, and the fact that it won't be multi-regional automatically. If it needs to be, we will have to manually manage that, and that is not an option that we want to consider first. Lastly, Cloud Filestore does not automatically support lifecycle management for the files that it stores. So that's another thing that you'll have to do manually. Whereas all of this is automatically provided by Cloud Storage, which is why we chose Cloud Storage as a right option for this question. There are quite a few things that we take away from this particular question. But the key thing would be you have to be very thorough with storage options. Very, very thorough. Study that flowchart. Ensure you know what kind of data is stored on each of these storage options and what are their limitations and capabilities. The approach we learned or we used in answering this question was that we worked our way logically through the question requirements. We are mapping what are the solution features and capabilities with the question requirements. If they do not match, then it is possibly a solution that you eliminate. Finally, when you're not able to eliminate some options because you don't know it well, ensure that the ones you know well completely match the requirements. I'm going to leave you with a few references. Please do study object lifecycle management, where data is stored, and what are the options to store the data, whether it's regional, dual regional, or multi-regional. Understand all the different storage options, even something like Filestore, which is probably fairly new and it's not something that you have used in your project, but you have to know what are its capabilities. Also, you can look at how to combine these solutions, for example, load balancers and the content delivery network, CDN, with storage options to give you global, give you the ability to serve your data globally with very low latency. Now it's time to subscribe to all the great content we've got lined up for you to learn Google Cloud and to help you with the certifications.